and welcome to Study with Sudhir. This is your digital classroom. My name is T.S. Sudhir. We are looking at the Act 2 of The Merchant of Venice, and we will be looking at all the small scenes which many people would think they are not very significant from an examination point of view, but they are significant in two aspects. One, of course, they add to the plot and help the plot move ahead. And number two, especially with reference to the 2021 board examination for students of class 10 ICSE, all I would say is that while we consider the trial scene, the casket scenes, the three introduction scenes in Act 1 to be more important from an examination point of view so far, 2021 could be a different ball game, and I would want to caution all you students out there who have been asking me which are the more important scenes. So it's quite possible that the ICSE Council, the people who set the paper, may decide to actually surprise students by giving passages from relatively easier scenes or scenes which may not be considered as very important. Okay, so which is why I would advise you to go through all these short scenes, also the explanation video, so that you don't really leave anything to chance. And I really believe that if you do MOV very well, your 32 marks are in your pocket, and that's a big thing. Your 32 marks can really be in your pocket if you do MOV very well and you actually go on to attempt 2 questions instead of 1, which many students think they would. Okay, now today we are going to do Act 2, Scene 3 and Scene 4 in this particular video. Who is there in this particular short scene? This is Jessica as well as Lancelot. Lancelot, we've already been introduced to him in Act 2, Scene 2 along with his father Gobbo. Now, in this particular scene is when Lorenzo and Jessica's love story is introduced, right? And that is in a sense running parallel to the love story of Bassanio and Portia, right? And why Jessica is such an important character is because she's Shylock's daughter. So in that sense, a kind of a counterfoil to what all Shylock represents, what all Shylock symbolizes as far as the Merchant of Venice play is concerned. So Jessica says, "I'm sorry, thou wilt leave my father, so our house is hell." This is a very important line, and that's what makes even a short scene like this so significant. "And thou, a merry devil, didst rob it of some taste of tediousness, but fare thee well, there is a ducat for thee, and Lancelot, soon at supper shalt thou see Lorenzo, who is thy new master's guest. Give him this letter, do it secretly, and so farewell. I would not have my father see me in talk with thee." I wouldn't want my father to see me talking to you, right? We have already seen that Lancelot intends to leave the service of Shylock and move over to the service of Bassanio, who he thinks is a very rich person in the city of Venice. So Jessica basically saying that, "I'm sorry you are leaving my father in these circumstances like this." And she says, "Our house is hell." It's like hell, like atmosphere as far as our home is concerned, and you actually helped cheer it up, and you are quite a merry devil. It's almost said in a very playful kind of a manner, almost not teasing, but generally very indulgent kind of a tone. You are a merry devil, right? Merry as in a funny kind of a devil, but goodbye. Okay, and you actually helped kind of lighten up the mood in our household, right? But goodbye. And she says, "I'm giving you this ducat," which is the currency at that time in Venice, and she says that you will be meeting Lorenzo over dinner, right? And he will be a guest at your new master's home, that is at the house of Bassanio, right? And she says, "Give him this letter." So this is a letter that Jessica wants to be given, handed over to Lorenzo, right? And she says, "Do it secretly and goodbye, and I wouldn't want my father to see you out there," right? So basically what it also shows and reconfirms is that Lancelot's a bit of a nonsensical, idiotic ridiculousness also helped lighten up the very serious atmosphere in the household of Shylock, and that is being said in so many words by his daughter Jessica. "But our house is otherwise hell." So if you just get the first 3 sentences said by Jessica, on the face of it, it may not seem very important in the overall context of the play, but it serves a purpose to actually ask you questions about different characters from the play, which is why I say even seemingly not so important dialogues can actually be important, especially in a year like 2021, right? Lancelot says, adieu, tears exhibit my tongue, most beautiful pagan, most sweet Jew. If a Christian do not play the knave and get thee, I am much deceived. But adieu, these foolish drops to somewhat drown my manly spirit, adieu. So Lancelot here trying to say goodbye, and he says that tears exhibit my tongue, but that's not exactly what he wants to say. He means to say tears inhibit my tongue, in the sense that because of tears I'm not able to express what I really feel for you. But as usual, in addition to the comic element to the play, Lancelot given to using wrong words for what he actually means to say, right? So basically saying that tears and my emotions are preventing me from speaking to you, and he calls her a most beautiful pagan, a most beautiful Jew, and he says, I'm sure some Christian will actually resort to some kind of trickery in order to win your hand, right? And then he says, okay, goodbye, because it's not very manly to cry. So he does consider himself in that kind of sense. So he says, if I will feel cheated, and I'm sure if a Christian does not try something, anything under the earth, anything under the sun, sorry, in order to win your hand. Jessica says, farewell good Lancelot, and Lancelot exits, and then she's talking aloud to herself and basically for the benefit of the audience in the theatre. She says, oh God, what a heinous sinner I am, to be ashamed of my father's child. This paragraph, this piece of dialogue, very important. Please mark these lines said by Jessica. Alack, what heinous sin is it in me to be ashamed to be my father's child? But though I am a daughter to his blood, I am not to his manners. O Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I shall end this strife, become a Christian and thy loving wife. And why do I say this is important? Because last year, in fact, 2020 examination, students were given a passage concerning Lancelot, which was a bit of a googly, because that's not normally what is expected. So you can never rule out one of the three passages to actually concern one of the minor characters. Okay, and Jessica, compared to say Portia, Bassanio, Antonio, is a minor character. So she says, what a heinous sinner I am, what a terrible sinner I am, to be ashamed of my father's child. So you could be asked question as to why is Jessica ashamed to be Shylock's daughter? Okay, but I need to remember that I am related to him by blood. Okay, she's obviously the blood relation, and while I am related to him by blood, I am not related to him in terms of behavior as a person, as a personality, as a character. I am very different from my father. So she says, oh Lorenzo, if you keep your promise, I will end this kind of agony and torture that I am going through by becoming a Christian, which I will be by marrying you. Okay, and then I will be your loving wife. So that's what she's trying to say. Basically she means to say that she feels it's a disgrace, it's an insult to be Shylock's child, but she really cannot help it because that's by matter of birth. And but she does not copy his behavior. In terms of behavior, she's very different from Shylock, and therefore she addresses Lorenzo, and she sees Lorenzo as a gateway to escape from both her father's household, whose house she describes as hell, and number two, also not to be a Jew anymore, to become a Christian. So once again, kind of reinforcing the Christian Jew narrative that kind of pervades the entire play, The Merchant of Venice. Now, what does the scene reveal about Jessica? Basically, it reveals the prevailing Christian prejudice against the Jews. So she does believe that as a Jew, she's almost like a second-class citizen as far as that city and country is concerned. So there is that stigma, which is what is being highlighted, and if you have gone through Act 1, you will know exactly what I mean, right? And she feels that she's actually moving to something good by marrying a Christian. So it's not just Lorenzo who she loves who is important, the fact that he is a Christian also matters quite a lot. And Lancelot interestingly calls her a sweet Jew, right? So that is something very important. So though Jessica is kind of making us hate and dislike Shylock much more, because if your own daughter is saying these kind of words about the father, you also feel that okay, he must be a bad man in that sense, right? But Lancelot making the distinction between Jessica and Shylock by calling her a sweet Jew. So there is that difference which comes through. So if you get any passages from this, everything will be related also to Shylock. So that's something very important. Now let's move to Act 2 Scene 4 in this particular explanation video. Now what happens in this particular scene is that Bassanio's friends have arranged for some kind of an entertainment for the guests who are coming to dinner that night, right? And at that stage, Lancelot arrives with Jessica's letter, which is addressed to Lorenzo, right? And Lorenzo at that time tells Grosciano about the plans to elope, right? Using the masquerade as a front. So that's what this scene is basically developing the plot, and the masquerade is essentially again something which contributes to the main plot of the play. Now this happens in Venice. Grosciano, Lorenzo, Salarino and Salanio are the 4 characters out there. So Lorenzo says, "Nay, we will slink away in supper time, disguise us at a lodging and return all in an hour." So it basically says that they should slip out without being seen by anyone while others are having supper at Bassanio's house, and go to his rooms and then put on their masks and costumes. So masquerade was something which was very prevalent during the 16th century, during the time that Shakespeare wrote. Now what exactly is a masquerade? If you get a question from the mask scenes, you would be expected to also explain what exactly is a masquerade. Now basically it's known as an amateur dramatic performance, which also includes a bit of a dance and song form. Basically the players wore masks and different kinds of costumes and took part in a procession of sorts, playing in all kinds of musical instruments. So basically it was a form of entertainment which included music, it included poetry and also included dance. And because the masks were a part of it, it also included a kind of hiding your own true identity. Okay. Now, Lorenzo says that this is our plan and we'll come back in an hour, but Grosciano says, but we have not made any preparations. Salarino says that we have not even talked about who will be our torch bearers, in the procession. Torch bearers are basically attendants who carry that very lighted torch and they walked in front of the gentlemen who were part of the procession. Salanio says the masquerade party were actually, it is vile unless it may be quaintly ordered and better in my mind not undertook. So, unless it is done very stylishly, unless it is done in a very stylish manner, that entire masquerade may actually be proved to be a very disgusting kind of an experience. So it may not turn out very well, it may prove to be a terrible experience if we do not plan it carefully, if we do not manage it well. So in that case, I would much rather suggest that we call it off, we cancel the entire plan. Lorenzo says, but it's already 4 o'clock, right? We have 2 hours to get ready. So we do have time on our hands in order to get it ready. Why is Lorenzo saying it? Because he wants to use the pretext of the masquerade in order to execute his elopement plans with Jessica, right, to furnish us. And that's when Lancelot enters with a letter, right? Lancelot says, Lancelot gives a letter and he says, if you don't mind opening this letter, you can find out for yourself, because Lorenzo says, what is the matter? And Lorenzo says, I know the handwriting and it is a beautiful handwriting, and the beautiful hand who wrote this letter, basically praising Jessica, the beautiful hand that actually wrote this particular letter is actually whiter than the paper than the letter is actually written on, basically praising Jessica's beauty. So Grosciano says, I bet it's a love letter, and Lancelot takes leave of, wants to leave. He says, may I be excused? So he says, where are you going? Lancelot says, to invite my former boss, that is the Jew, that is Shylock, to have supper tonight with my new master, that is Bassanio the Christian. So you see, Jew, Christian is how they kind of refer to. Lorenzo says, hold here, takes this and gives him money. Tells gentle Jessica that I will not fail her. Speak it privately. Go and tell her, get ready for the masquerade tonight. I have someone who can be my torch bearer. So he basically says that I have found my torch bearer, which would be Jessica. He says, all right, I will go get things ready. Salanio says, so will I. Lorenzo says, meet me and Grosciano at his house in about an hour. Salarino says, wasn't that letter from Jessica? And Lorenzo says, and this is a long piece of dialogue by Lorenzo, he says, yes, I have to tell you everything. She has directed that I shall take her from her father's house with gold and jewelry that she has in her possession, that she owns, right? And she has described, and that she has described the page suit. She has described the page suit, which is the uniform of a boy who is serving a person of a high rank, right? So she has described the uniform which she is going to wear as a disguise. If her father ever goes to heaven, okay, if her father, that is Shylock, ever goes to heaven, it will be only because his daughter is actually very good. So continuing to undermine and insult and humiliate Shylock, saying that he's not good, but the only good thing about him is his daughter Jessica, right? And that's the only reason why he may end up going to heaven instead of hell after death. He says she will be never punished with bad luck unless it is because her father is an unbelieving, that is an atheist Jew, right? And he says, come with me, and he gives Graciano the letter. You can look this letter over as you go. Beautiful Jessica will be my torch bearer. So that's the basically we are being introduced to the masquerade and what may unfold. So basically also creating a sense of curiosity over what would happen really during the masquerade. So that is essentially what is happening out here. So a couple of things important about the scene is how Lorenzo reacts when he sees Jessica's letter, basically talking about how beautiful her handwriting is, about how beautiful she is, and the other part of course is about why Lorenzo is very enthusiastic about the masquerade, and then the part where he decides to confide in Graciano and what he says about Shylock while he is talking about Shylock to Graciano. So that's something very important. So basically this scene takes a play a little forward by informing us about the masquerade. So that is as far as Act 2 Scene 4 is concerned. We will do Act 2 Scene 5, Scene 6, Scene 7 and 9 we have already done the 2 casket scenes involving Morocco and Aragon, and Act 2 Scene 8, with which our entire Merchant of Venice will be complete. Thank you very much for watching.